Yo, I'm about to kill this. Yeah. I wanna see if I can get all this done in one take. Yeah. Damn, I feel this one. Rock with me now. Rock with me. Yeah. Yo, they said that I would never.
Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, I've actually done something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. I've wanted to do like a curved hem striped tee because I've seen it all over the streetwear scene, sort of right the way throughout the back end of last year, and it's going to continue sort of right the way through the summer. So it's one that I wanted to do and I've wanted to do for a while. Please don't forget that if there's a tutorial that you want to see, just drop me a comment in the comment section below and I'll see if I can get onto it as quickly as possible. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below, as I do upload a video around once a week and I'm going to start doing some outfit of the days and things like that as well. The materials that you're going to need for this tutorial are some scissors, a rotary cutter, maybe a thread cutter and a cutting board. You're also going to need either a t-shirt or a pattern. I've decided to use my block t-shirt pattern and just adapted that. And you're also going to need your fabric. The last things you're going to need, I have personally in this video used an overlocker and a Coverstitch machine and a sewing machine. If you want to, you can just use a sewing machine, and I will talk you through how you can do that within the video. To start off with, lay your pattern down onto the fabric and cut around about 4 to 5 inches underneath where your pattern or your t-shirt ends. This will allow you to then create that curved hem at the bottom. Then you need to line your pattern up with the stripes. Now this is really important that you line the pattern up with the stripes every time you cut out, so that way when you sew it all together, the pattern of the stripes will match across the garment right the way from top to bottom. So I've taken loads of time right the way throughout this tutorial just lining up the stripes and trying to ensure that it's as close as it can be. I've then cut out the front of this t-shirt, and rather than making the curve, I've just continued my cutting line right the way off the bottom of the fabric, and then I can make my curve from there. I've then just put pins in the corresponding stripes where I want my curve to stop, and I've followed the stripe right the way across the garment and just put a pin in the other side as well. This way when I cut my curve, it will start and end at exactly the same place. Then I freehand drafted a nice curve from the center bottom of the garment right the way around to where that first pin is, and then folded the garment over in half so I can make the exact same cutting line across the other side. That way the curve is completely symmetrical around the top. For the back of the garment then, I just grabbed the front piece that I've just cut out. I've then laid it directly on top of what is going to be the back piece. Now as you can see, I've really taken my time here and matched up the lines right the way across this garment, so you can see that the line should continue right across the fabric underneath, and it should look as if mine's just blending in. That way you know that it's completely matched, so when you cut it out and you sew it together, the pattern will match right the way across. I've then just followed the cutting line of this all the way around and freehand drafted the back neck. I've just made some notches on all of my side seams at exactly the same point, so I know where to stop my hem and start it. For the sleeves then, I've used my large sweat sleeve pattern. This is a pattern that normally has a cuff on, so I've extended it about 2.5 to 3 inches at the end, using both top corners of the sleeve where the curve begins, and following that line right the way across so that I know the sleeve will match at both top ends and at both bottoms. And just cut that out and did exactly the same process as I did for the front and back by matching that sleeve up to the next one and cut that one out as well. I used the remaining fabric just to cut out a neckband. With all of my neckbands, I normally use a 2-inch width just so that it's a nice even neckband right the way around. So I've just measured out and cut a 2-inch strip of that fabric. Make sure when you do this, you cut down the stripe if it stretches that way. You need to make sure you do that because that's the only way the neckband's going to stretch and you won't be able to get it over your head. Okay, so for this next part, I'm actually going to be using the Janome Cover Pro. Now, a Coverstitch machine is something that I absolutely love. I love using it because I love working with jersey and sportswear, and that's pretty much what you use to hem, I would say, 90% of the garments. I do understand that not everyone has one, so if you don't worry, there are alternatives that you can use. You could use a twin needle on a sewing machine, and you could also use like a narrow zigzag or a blind hem, or you could create like a bias binding that would work its way around the curve. If you want me to, I can create a separate video purely based on ways to hem around the curve with a sewing machine rather than with a cover stitch machine itself. The one thing to make note of when you're using a cover stitch machine, or if you're using a twin needle machine on a sewing machine, is you must sew from the right side, so that what you'll see is 2 stitches following right the way around the right side of the garment, and then on the underside you'll see that zigzag flow that covers up the raw edges. So the way I've done that, folded under the fabric and began to just hem right the way around the garment, just taking your time because you probably have to stretch it out because it is on a curve. So what you want to do is just stretch out the fabric around the bend, so that as you're feeding it through the machine, it's actually feeding around and more fabric will be going in on the underside of the garment and being caught by that zigzag stitch. I've then repeated that process for the back, so that way essentially you have 2 curved hemmed front and back pieces. What you then need to do is lay the front and back together with right sides facing, and take out your pins and pin right down the side seams, ensuring that you're matching up the stripes, putting as many in as you want. Don't not use them because it'll be a lot harder then when you're trying to stitch the top together. I used pins just on my side seams and I didn't worry about my shoulder seams because it wasn't as important, but with the side seams I really did use some pins, and I took my time with this to ensure that the stripes matched. You then are going to take it to your overlocker or your sewing machine and use either a overlocking stitch or a zigzag stitch, or use your overlocker like I'm going to do. And you're going to sew right the way up all of the side seams and across the shoulder seams. I've then taken my sleeve and folded it right sides together and just ran a stitch myself using an overlocker, ran an overlocking stitch right the way from the bottom to the top. Again, just making sure I'm matching up those stripes right the way down that sleeve. I've done that for both sleeves as well. Once that's done, turn the sleeve out right ways and then insert it into the hole that you currently have for a sleeve in the garment. You then need to match up the side seam and the underarm seam of the sleeve on the inside of the top and pop a pin in there. Now, because you've cut it on the curve with a stripe, it's quite easy to find the top of the sleeve. If you look around, you should see the point at which your highest stripe is. That will be the top of your sleeve. You just match that up with the shoulder seam and pop a pin in there. Then proceed to just sew, overlock, zigzag stitch, however you want to, right the way around the inside seam of that sleeve. Then when you turn the garment out the right way, all the right sides should be facing. I've then repeated that process for the other sleeve before moving on to the neckband. Now, I've spoken in detail a little bit before about how to actually create the perfect neckband. I am going to be doing a tutorial purely based on this, as it's something that a lot of new sewers and first time sewers actually struggle with. It's something I struggled with a hell of a lot, and this is just sort of the easiest way for me to overcome that, regardless of the stretch of the garment or sort of how much room I have to work with it. So grabbing your 2-inch neckband and folding it in on itself wrong sides together. You're then going to sew it both right sides together against the edge of the neckline itself. Once you start sewing, you need to make sure you've always got tension on the neckband as you're sewing it together with the neckline. This is so that when you turn it in the right way, it gives you that nice snug fit all the way around your neck and doesn't sort of flop around and have no structure. So you do that around the entire of the neckband. I normally start around the centre back and work my way right around the front and back towards the back. And again, just before you come towards the end, you bring it out of the overlocker or the sewing machine and you grab your 2 loose ends and measure the rough distance that you still have to sew. Put a stitch down there or overlock down there, open that up, and then just sew the remaining part of the neckband to the neckline itself at the back. I then needed to hem the sleeves, so again I just used my Coverstitch machine, turned the sleeve under around about 1/2 inch and just hemmed it right the way around. Again, with this process you can use a stretch stitch, zigzag stitch or overlock stitch, however you want to do it, it's completely up to you. Or you can leave it raw hem, which I quite like to do on a few of my tops. I've taken this over to my sewing machine where I've actually put a straight stitch at the bottom of the side seam, right in where that seam is, just to stop the overlocking thread from unravelling and coming back on itself. This is purely just to secure the bottom of the garment, so that way it doesn't sort of part over time. The next process, as you guys will know if you watch any of my tutorials, is that I like to give it that clean shop bought finish. So I put in my own hem tags and my own neck tags. So this is completely up to you if you want to do that, just making sure that you put it into the center back of the neck, and I would say line it up with one of the stripes if you're putting on a hem tag. Now the last thing I've done is cleaned up all of the loose threads that are on the inside of the top and just chucked it on, and I'm finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below.
My talent delivers, been at the bottom of this barrel for far too long. Just an outcast lost in this world trying to belong. Searching for better days, gripping A's until I find them. Sacrificing sleep to bring some heat on the album. Tired of writing like I'm living this lavish life. In reality, it's all the same shit, just a different night. I wanna be like the people we praise. Celebrities making millions when they only my age. Got me thinking like